Good morning and welcome to today's presentation where we will hear from Sally Brinkley from AssessTech looking at electronic competence and how their solution has transformed the real industry. So Sally, can you introduce us to AssessTech? Tell us who you are, what are your key products and how have you transformed competence management in the UK?
Yeah, hi Anna-Marie. So my name is Sally Brinkley. I'm the Director of Operations at AssessTech. And I've got a few slides here to go through, so I'll just talk through them. AssessTech is a technology and training company. We're based in the UK, specialising in competence management for the railway. Our underlying belief is that we need to promote a process of continuous improvement through competence management in order to help train operating companies and other railway operators to reduce their business risk and reduce the number of incidents they have through the use of competence data and targeted training and development of people. And we do all this by offering products to the market as software as a service. And perhaps we'll talk a bit more about that a bit later. So the products that we offer, the main one, our flagship product, is the AssessTech Competence Management System, and I'm sure we'll do a bit more detail about that in a moment. But we also have AssessBook, which is an online learning management system, and AssessTube, which is a secure video hosting service, a bit like YouTube but private. And these products can be joined up and will work together to really exploit all of the data you can capture through the competence management system to really deliver some interesting benefits for our companies. So why is electronic competence management important? Well, firstly, we have to understand that paper records and spreadsheets are really limited. If you wind the clock back in the UK 7 or 8 years, no one was doing electronic competence management. Everybody was recording, was going out, doing assessments on pieces of paper or maybe on spreadsheets, but basically making a file for a driver or a guard or whoever, making a file kind of yay thick with all of the assessments that person had ever had. Now, if you want to find out something about that person, it's a relatively simple process to go and look in their file. But that sort of misses the point in a way, because if you want to answer a question like, what are the 5 things my people struggle with most often, or where is my biggest risk, you can't leverage that data to find that out. I mean, short of kind of opening up all the driver files and wallpapering the walls with all the assessments to have a look for common themes. I mean, the bottom line is the effort involved in that activity just simply wouldn't match the benefit you got from it. And the point there is that it's the data that's powerful. So if you capture that data during the assessments, you can really reap some benefits. You could make huge time savings for assessors and for candidates by not assessing the same thing over and over again, by actually having the data to work out what you had and you hadn't assessed so far and where you were with everything. You could use this data to give managers visibility of competence across groups and also across the whole organisation. So you could answer questions like, what are the 5 things my drivers get wrong most often? And you can use this data to identify opportunities for improvement. You can find holes in your training, you can find holes in your process, you can basically make the whole thing much more efficient. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So give us an explanation of what developmental competence is and how does it reduce risk and deliver that safer railway that you talked about?
So I think it's really important to understand there's 2 elements to what AssessTech have brought to the UK. We've encouraged and promoted electronic competence management, which is a kind of technology-based solution, but we've also promoted developmental competence management, which is a bit of a culture shift. So maybe I should sort of answer the question, what is developmental competence management? Well, over time, competence management has really been approached in 2 different ways. And the most common one, certainly if you roll the clock back a few years, was compliance-based competence management. You know, this is characterized by an assessor going out, trying to find problems, telling people off, generally being a bit grumpy, and not really helpful, kind of ticking boxes. And then there's this developmental approach whereby you're actually trying to find problems and fix problems through the assessment process rather than waiting for accidents to happen. So let's do a bit more detail on that. So think about compliance-based assessment. People do assessment in the railway if they're in this mode because they have to. Somebody's told them, in order to keep your franchise or your operating license or your safety certificate or whatever it is, you've got to do this. So it's seen as a cost. And therefore, it attracts minimum investment. The upshot of all this is assessments are really feared by candidates. You know, the driver's thinking, oh, bother, I'm going to have an assessment today. And in their mind, they can only see two outcomes. One is they kind of get away with it. And the other is the assessor finds something horrible and has their key off them. You know, and therefore what they're going to do is completely shut down and keep really quiet about anything they don't know and try and hide any issues. The upshot of this is the assessment doesn't do any good. It doesn't find any trouble because it doesn't go near any trouble because anyway, they're trying to do it quickly because it's a minimum cost thing. So the whole thing is reactive. You can't find a problem until something horrible has gone wrong, until somebody's had an incident, which is obviously makes the whole thing, frankly, a little bit of a waste of time. So there's this other approach, developmental. And this is genuinely about improving performance of your staff. So the idea is you encourage candidates to own their own competence. So if you rocked up to a driver in the somewhere in the UK a few years ago and said to them, who is responsible for your competence? That driver would say, my manager. And that's ridiculous. That's the wrong answer. The right answer is me. I'm responsible for my own competence. But this compliance-based approach has kind of taken it away from them. And if you go today to many of our customers, you will still get some who say my manager, but quite a few will say me, I'm responsible for my own competence. And that's really important. The company will see this as a worthwhile investment. And importantly, assessment, you can move to a place where assessments are seen as helpful. Oh, good, my assessor's coming to help me today. I'm going to tell him all the things I'm struggling with and get them fixed. I'm going to get myself some training. I'm going to get an action plan in place and I'm going to be safe. You can therefore detect problems while you are assessing people and prevent incidents. And actually, you're compliant with your safety standard as a byproduct, so why wouldn't you do this? The whole thing is proactive. So that was rather a long-winded explanation, but let's talk about what you need to do in order to be developmental. You've got to encourage candidates to take responsibility for their own competence. And the most important aspect of that is actually a developmental grading system. If you go and assess somebody and you say at the end, well done, Frank, you got 85%. That person's going to think, lovely, got away with that, 85%, that's good, I'm off. Now, the trouble is the 15% is potentially a problem waiting to happen. So it would be much better to focus on that and find a development action to fix that. So don't give people overall marks. Don't say, well done, 85%. Actually grade your criteria on a developmental scale, criterion by criterion. Red, it doesn't have to be traffic lights. You can have whatever color scheme you like, but it has to be a scale. So the idea is that, and traffic lights make sense. Red, this person's got a serious problem here. They don't understand anything. They don't understand something. They fall short of the requirement. They're in a risk position. And you need to find a development action for them. Maybe they need retraining. Amber, they're a bit dodgy on this, but maybe you could rebrief them at the time and deal with it. Green, lovely, they're going along great. And people feel the need to give brownie points. So we have a double green, which allows people to say this person went over and above. Now, Frank, who got 85%, doesn't have 85% now. He has 2 ambers and a red, or 3 ambers or something, and he can go and do something with that So next time, he's not going to get those ambers. And hence the problem has been dealt with without waiting for him to have a incident. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So based on all of that information around developmental competence management, can you explain how your product ACMS works and what are the key benefits?
Yes, certainly. So let's start with ACMS. We won't talk about the others today because the others are really add-ons for ACMS. So ACMS, it's not very imaginatively named, just stands for the AssessTech Competence Management System. And it's an online web-based application. So you access it via a browser. So if you've got a device and an internet connection and a browser, you can use the system. Now, it's a recognition that there are some things you need to do in the world where you don't have a good network connection and there isn't, there's no internet. So we have a series of offline apps to support people doing things in the field that they need to do in an offline fashion. And the whole thing is module based. So customers subscribe to them and pay for the modules that they want that meet their business need. And some of our customers buy all of these and some buy like just 2. So it's really, you can really tailor it for your own needs. Now, there's a world in here. This system's massive and I could wax on about it for hours, but I won't. I'll just pick out a couple of the key features from the assessment module actually, because that's what everybody starts with. Now, the first thing to note, and one of the key benefits of ACMS is the way in which we deal with schedules. Now, the idea is a candidate has a competence cycle, 2 years, 3 years. This could be a driver, it could be a guard, it could be an engineer, it could be a gate line person, it could be whoever you like. Now, during that period, you have to assess them on a criteria set. So you have a series of windows of opportunity to go and do something to them. And you can have, as in this case, the person's due 2 practical assessments, an interview and a go on the simulator. Now, you can have as many assessments scheduled in as you want, but the idea is there is a plan. You've then got a criteria set, which will have more than 7 units. These units could be, prep for duty, coupling and uncoupling trains, driving, could be use of ticket machines. It could be anything that's pertinent to the role. And the idea is you can focus particular units on particular assessments. And maybe you have a unit that needs to be assessed every time, so you can put that in everyone. Now, the point of this is that it encourages the assessor to do something planned with the candidate at each intervention, rather than go out and do the same assessment they did last time. Again, if you roll the clock back in the UK, we had a lot of cases whereby drivers were being assessed 6 times over a 3-year period, and what they'd actually had was the same ride 6 times and the same small number of criteria assessed. Now, if you do it, the way this system works is there's a special period at the end called a summary or a review period. And what that will do is it will bring forward for review at the end of the cycle anything that wasn't seen during the cycle or was seen but was marked at red or amber. Now, what this means is at the end of the cycle, you've got some good coverage of your criteria set and you can sign that person off as competent simply by interviewing them about the things that were missed or the things that were found to be below standard. You actually haven't got to do a rules exam because you have confidence that you've covered the rules during the assessment. And there is a massive time saving in that. Companies were doing things like giving drivers 2 days off to revise their rules so they could sit a rules exam. It was taking, it's a really expensive exercise. It's really stressful for the driver. And what happens is they cram the rules and then they do the exam and they get really stressed and then they forget about it for another 3 years. So it's simply not helpful. So this process of continuous assessment and just using the summary period to pick up what's been missed is just massive for companies in terms of time savings for assessors and for time off track and release and stuff. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that we have apps for doing things like assessments. There's just some screenshots here from, we actually have an app that runs on iOS and Android tablets. This is the Android one. It's just some screenshots so you can sort of get an idea of how an assessor would go and assess a candidate. this is being designed for use in safety critical environments such as driving cabs. So it's dull, it doesn't whoop and flash or light up or cause any sort of distraction. So it's at least as safe, if not safer, than somebody standing there and using a pen and paper. It's nothing to distract anyone. And then back to what I was saying earlier, if you capture all this data about the reds, the ambers and the greens electronically, you can do something with it. You can play some tunes on it. So you could compare all the assessors against each other, and you can find the rogue assessor who only ever gives greens, because not because he's got all the best candidates, because they're all his mate and he's a bit scared to give them a red. So you can actually, you're actually got some power at your fingertips by looking at this data. So what are the benefits of ACMS? Well, the benefits are really are not just of ACMS, they're of a combination of the system, the fact that you've decided to be electronic, and also the desire to be developmental with people, but you will see an improved performance. Candidates will be motivated to improve their performance because they own it. And actually, no one likes having incidents. So if candidates see a reduction in incident rates, that's in their interest too. You will get, and this is just huge for the company, you will know how competent your people are. You will know all the problems that you have, and you don't know at the moment. All you know is that you've run around and ticked a load of boxes. So you can have confidence that people are safe. You will see a reduction in incident rates. It's absolutely self-evident that if you discover a problem while you're assessing someone, that problem is not likely to exhibit as an incident. And often your people are when everything else has gone wrong, your people are often your last line of defense. And you will save cost because you will eliminate cost from the business. You'll save assessor time, you'll have less time off track of candidates being assessed and doing rules exams and things like that. But also just reducing incidents. If you save yourself one incident a year by using this system, you'll pay for it. You know, they're expensive when they happen, they're expensive to investigate. The human cost of trauma is wrapped up in that. It's just obvious to anyone who works on the railway that reducing incidents is quite apart from the safety. It's just good for everybody, right?
So can you explain how you deliver ACMS? What's your business model?
Okay, so fairly early, my background's actually not railway, by the way, it's network and software engineering. And what I decided really early on was the last thing I wanted to do was to write bespoke systems for people. You know, the idea that people can write down their requirements and we can deliver them and everybody can be happy and we can not have an argument about whose fault it is that it doesn't work. That's just ridiculous. That model doesn't work at all. So we don't do that. We make products and we deliver them as software as a service. So we host these platforms for these systems in our own data center. We manage them 24/7, make sure they're running. But we also have a business hours support desk. So there are people, at the moment they're sat in the UK, who only support AssessTech products. They don't do anything else. It's not a call center. It's a series of skilled individuals who will do all of the system configuration and customization. They understand the railway, they understand assessments, they can advise people on how to use the system, not just push the buttons. The system's got a really sophisticated reporting engine. So they make bespoke reports and dashboards, and also import any data, do the system setup, and train the admins for the system within the company. And all of this is part of the service, and it's unlimited. So people they pay a setup fee and they pay a license fee, and they don't pay anything else. There's no business of can we have our theme changed to blue and us going, yes, that'll be $26.80 or something. We don't do that. And the advantage for our customers is they know what they're in for each year. They know they have to pay the license fee, and they know they're going to get the help and support they need. And we never charge development fees for new features. If our customers have good ideas about things the system should do, we develop them and then we give them to everybody as part of the license fee, which sounds altruistic, but it's not. It's a really sensible business strategy. Because actually it's really important to us how we do product development. Our genuine objective is to make what the industry needs. And like I said, this is not about being altruistic. Let me tell you, as a software supplier, life's a lot easier if your customers are happy, right? That really makes a big difference to our quality of life. So we run an agile work stack, which means we have a huge list, always a huge list of new features, ideas, and stuff that we want to do. And we run these series of user forums. Now, we haven't run one this year because of coronavirus, but we might try and run a virtual one in a minute. But it's an event for our customers. And what we do at this event is we demonstrate the stuff we've developed recently. We present ideas for what's on the work stack and what we think we're going to do in the next year. We take feedback on that. We do workshops to clarify these requirements, and people kind of get a vote. There's not a ballot, but people do get a say. And this gives us a rounded view of the industry across train operating companies, freight operating companies, light rail. And actually these things are more similar than they are different. So I think we genuinely end up with a product that meets the needs of the industry, which is what we're trying to do.
Sounds interesting. It's a really good business model. So can you explain which companies are actually using ACMS?
Yeah, I've got one of those logo pack slides here. This isn't everybody who's using it, but it is the people who kind of given us permission to talk about them. And we've got all of the, I think we've got something like 85% of the rail network in the UK covered. And you can see here, all the big names in the UK are here, but it's possibly worth pointing out some of them that are not in the UK. Eurostar came on board about 18 months ago. They're really pleased with the service. There was a challenge there because of language. They've got their system implemented in both French and English, and they can switch between it. National Express, who are on there somewhere, is actually a company in Germany. It's National Express Germany who are using the system. And right in the middle there, Saudi Arabia Rail, who started using our system 2 years ago now. And again, that was a challenge for implementation. There's quite a big cultural difference there in the way they operate, but actually the system didn't need any changes. The system works fine, and it works fine for all of these people. So a lot of them are train operating companies. First Tram is a light rail company. Saudi Arabia Rail is actually a freight company. And there are a couple of engineering companies in there as well. GTR use it for their engineers. Harsco Rail is an engineering, actually it's a supply driver company, I think. So we've got the whole kind of gamut of different rail operators covered.
Great. So I noticed you've recently opened an Australia office. What are your plans for this region?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this. My aim here is to really show the rail industry in Australia the same consideration and help that we showed to the one in the UK. You know, I've only ever been to Australia once. I don't know personally, but I've spoken to quite a lot of people, and they tell me that the rail industry in Australia is in a very similar position to where we were in the UK a few years ago, and actually everything that I've told them about what we've done in the UK makes sense for being translated in Australia, and in the APAC region more widely. So we opened up an office only 4 weeks ago, was it? Opened up an office. We've got a business development person in Australia. His name's Graham Force, and he's working for us now. And, you know, the world's our oyster.
Exciting times ahead.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, Sally. That was really interesting. A really good overview of developmental competence management and the electronic element of it and ACMS. If you want any more information, please feel free to visit our website, www.AssessTech.com. Thanks.
Thank you.